The teenage years are hard, both for the parents and the kid. You're dealing with school pressure, budding relationships, trying to find your way in the world, all while crazy new hormones are raging around. So take these common issues and add mental health problems like depression on top of them, and it can be challenging, especially when this confluence leads to violence or other behavior issues. Sometimes the entire situation can just become completely overwhelming. Faced with this, 16-year-old Daniel Yuen's parents felt like the best thing they could do for their son was to send him to a school that would give him the help he needed. But just 10 days after his arrival at the CEDU School, Daniel went missing. And 16 years later, his family is still trying to find out just what went wrong. All right, you're going to want to buckle up for this one because what initially looks like a straightforward case of a runaway takes some turns into California cults, child molesters, possible serial killers, celebrities, and more. When a person goes missing, there's a special kind of pain in the not knowing. I want to tell the stories of those who never came home. I want to tell you the story of Daniel Ted Yuen. I'm Kona Gallagher.
And I'm Ethan Flick.
And this is And Then They Were Gone. Daniel Yuen was born on August 20th, 1987 in Edison, New Jersey to Lisa and Wayne Yuen. Daniel was Lisa and Wayne's first child and was said by his parents to be a loving and sweet child, and he was involved in sports, including football. But by the time he got to high school, something changed in Daniel. He fell into a deep depression and started acting out. According to his parents, Daniel started staying out until all hours of the night and just generally disregarded rules.
And there's no history of mental health problems before this?
No, I mean, it seems like his childhood was totally fine, and then he hit high school, and they really started, to notice things like this depression. And the Yuens do seem like very proactive parents, and it does sound like they tried to get on top of the situation as soon as possible. They tried medical doctors and therapists, but nothing seemed to help. Soon, in 2003, it seemed that things started spiraling out of control. Daniel and his girlfriend broke up, and that only exacerbated his depression, and soon he stopped going to school entirely. One of Daniel's therapists recommended the CEDU School. The CEDU School was located across the country in San Bernardino, California, but it was a therapeutic school that was supposed to give intensive help to children like Daniel. Unsure of what else they could do to help their son, the Yuens decided to enroll Daniel in January of 2004.
And they're from New Jersey?
Yeah, Edison.
That's
It is, yeah, completely across the country.
Yeah. That's bizarre to me to send your kid across the country.
Well, I mean, it really does seem like they were at the end of their rope at that point, and the school did come recommended by a therapist. And the school itself, was gorgeous. Like, it's in the mountains of California. It seems peaceful, and it was really touted as, an escape, right? So like a place that these kids who are troubled could escape and focus on
therapy and their mental health issues.
Getting better and, without being in their normal day-to-day lives with their normal day-to-day problems. But to understand what happens next, it's imperative that we talk about the history of the CEDU School, its origins, and what happened to it after Daniel's disappearance. So CEDU was formed in 1967 by Mel Wasserman and his wife, Brigitte. Mel was a furniture salesman by trade, but had issues with substance abuse. So he turned to Synanon, which was a recovery program started by Charles E. Dieterich. And that was formed in 1958 in Santa Monica, California. Now, Dieterich was previously a member of Alcoholics Anonymous and was a well-liked speaker in the group. But AA didn't always welcome people with drug addictions. because those issues were considered to be significantly different from alcoholism. So, Dietrich did what anyone would do. He dropped acid and came up with his own idea. He'd start a recovery program. And so Synanon, which welcomed both alcoholics and drug users, quickly grew. They even started selling promotional items and quickly began turning a profit. Dietrich had Hollywood connections as well, which he was able to utilize in order to grow Synanon's profile. Before long, California courts were ordering juveniles in the justice system to enroll in Synanon.
Yeah, so I know a little bit about this, but at what point does Synanon become a cult?
Well, so it takes a little while, okay. Right? And so I read this article that basically said that Synanon went through different phases. Mm-hmm. From just an alternative to AA to full-on cult. Synanon started in 1958, and by 1967, Dietrich had declared that no one could graduate Synanon because addiction is never truly cured. This led to Synanon II, a utopian society that had children raised in hatcheries.
Yeah. So this is the part that I know about. From the time they're 6 months old, they get taken away from their parents and raised almost in an infant commune, separated from their parents.
Yeah, that was the hatchery.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And their mothers are only allowed to come and see them once a week.
Yeah, and mothers who wanted to see them too much were called head suckers.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And part of this whole thing also involved partner swapping, yes, and forced vasectomies and forced abortions.
Yeah, so all of that is mentioned in a book that I'm reading, Hollywood Park by Mikhail Jolet. Mm-hmm. And he's the lead singer of
Airborne Toxic Event.
Thank you, Airborne Toxic Event. Because he actually escaped. Well, his mother took him from Synanon.
Yeah, so it sounds like by the time 1967 rolled around and Synanon 2 was a thing, it started to get a little scary. And in order to recruit, Synanon eventually started accepting non-addict members. But the idea of lifetime rehabilitation wasn't exactly in line with therapeutic norms, so Synanon began to receive some pushback. Attorney Paul Morantz contacted the health department and brought up the fact that Synanon was running an unauthorized medical clinic and taking in people with medical needs Synanon had no license to treat. So tax issues arose, and in response to these accusations, Dietrich declared that Synanon was a tax-exempt religious organization called the Church of Synanon.
And there goes the cult.
Yep, at that point we're in full-on cult mode, complete with their own Marines and a holy war.
Yeah. Didn't we talk about all cults started in California
we did.
Last episode?
I know, yeah, in the Bear Diaz episode.
Yeah.
This cult had The Wire, which was an internal broadcasting system that played 24 hours a day with repeated talk of getting the enemies. Dietrich said that people shouldn't mess with Synanon because he couldn't control his members, telling reporter Connie Chung in 1978 that bombs could go off in homes of